Welcome to the Holiness Today podcast. In this episode, I have a conversation with Crystal Gibbons, Global Missions Communications Coordinator. Holiness Today is launching a new partnership with Global Mission that will introduce fresh voices, new stories, and deeper engagement with our church around the world. In our conversation, Crystal tells about her story of faith, her work for Global Missions, and shares how this partnership will help highlight the incredible work happening in our regions.
Well, welcome to the Holiness Today podcast, Crystal, Global Missions Communications Coordinator, Crystal Gibbons. You are where are you? Tell us where you're at right now.
I'm currently in Busingen, Germany, which is just on the border of Switzerland and Germany. This really little enclave, unique village, and it's where the Eurasia regional offices are.
And if I remember correctly from some stuff you've told me and the Arnolds and others that have lived there, you kind of travel across borders pretty quickly, right, to shop and all that. So just share a little bit. What's it like there?
Yeah, it's a quiet little village. It's very small, and even to get groceries, there's no groceries in the village. So you have to leave the village, which means you're actually leaving Germany, going into Switzerland, crossing back into Germany to go grocery shopping, which is like maybe 5-minute drive, but you cross the border twice. So it's an interesting place. And they check your groceries on the way back if you've bought too much meat that you're importing because you're moving into another country.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
It's very unique, but it's a beautiful place. It's right on the Rhine River, and you just can't get any better, really. It's a beautiful place.
Is it mountainous too? Are you surrounded by mountains, or what's the geography like there?
Yeah. We can see on a clear day, you can see the Alps pretty clearly on your drive out of the village. You can see it from the grocery store, like I just mentioned. If you're taking a walk, there's some beautiful hills, and we have sheep, Highland sheep, and we even have a camel in the village. So it's a very unique little village.
That is cool. And are you being a native English speaker, but what other language do you speak, and are you able to get around speaking English pretty easily, or what's that like?
Yeah, I wouldn't say freely that I speak other languages fluently, but I attempt other languages. Yeah. No, my husband and I, when we first were sent to the field, we took Russian language courses pretty intensely, about 4 days a week for 4 hours a day. Very challenging language for an English speaker. So I would say I speak that maybe like a 5-year-old. And then I've been learning some German, since German is the language of the country I'm in currently. But to be honest, there's so many English speakers here that live around me that as soon as I start speaking poorly in German, they very quickly switch to English. So it's hard to learn German because they are trying to help you and say, no, I speak English. And to be honest, they always speak better English than I do German. So.
And Germany is a long way from home. You grew up in Michigan. Is that where you is that where you were born too? Were you born in Michigan as well?
Well, technically I was born in Ohio. But if you know anything about Michigan and Ohio, they have a little bit of a rivalry. So I don't tell many people in Michigan that I was actually born in Ohio. But yes, I've spent most of my life in Michigan.
So you grew up in Michigan, and then were you always connected to the Church of the Nazarene? Is that the church you were raised in, or what's your story with the Church of the Nazarene?
Yeah, it goes really deep. I'm one of those really our family has been in the Church of the Nazarene for many generations, and in fact has been pastoring in the Church of the Nazarene. So I think I'm 4th generation Nazarene pastor's kid. So my dad is a Nazarene pastor, my husband, myself, my brother, both of my grandfathers, most of my uncles and cousins. So we're in deep, really, really deep.
So almost a family reunion when you go to Nazarene events.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a family business for sure.
So at what did you? Now I'm just assuming. Did you then go to all of that? I believe or no? Did you not go to all of that? I can't remember now if we've talked about this.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I should have, in the sense of it was our regional college.
Yeah.
But I was a little bit at that point in my life rebelling against sort of the Nazarene culture. So I went to just a state school. So I didn't end up going to a Nazarene school at that point.
What school did you go to?
I went to Western Michigan University.
Okay.
I was studying musical theater. So yeah, Kalamazoo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great school.
I grew up, well, part of my growing up was in Three Rivers, not far from Kalamazoo. So I'm
Nice. Okay.
familiar with the area a little bit. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So at what point after musical theater did you kind of decide that you wanted to get involved in global missions? I mean, what took you there? So how did you get from Western Michigan to where you're at now?
It was a long journey, as it often is sometimes with stubborn people and the Lord. But I studied musical theater. I did that for a little bit. I realized that's not really what I wanted to do forever. I found myself in Nashville working with Christian music industry and some different things. I kind of stayed connected to the Church of the Nazarene, but and I think honestly, as a child, I felt a calling to missions, and I every chance I got, I went on local 2-week mission trips or short-term missions trips, and just loved it. It was definitely something I loved. So I kind of stayed in missions in that way through my local church and going on short-term missions trips. But I worked a normal job for many, many years. I had kids. I got married. My husband went into ministry. So I became a pastor's wife, which, I didn't see that on my radar either. But sure enough, I followed in my parents' footsteps and I was a pastor's wife and we did ministry together in Michigan. And then about 5 years ago or so, actually, as our kids were heading into this new journey of life, they were graduating high school and my husband and I were doing ministry in Michigan and everything was going well, but we just felt that God was starting to move us a little bit, that there was some stirring in our spirits, as sometimes happens before God makes a change. And so we really made some intentional prayer around that and just asking God, okay, what's next? Do we stay here? Do you just want us to do something different? Do you want us to go to a new place? And sure enough, God asked us to go into a foreign mission field. So that's what we did. We moved our son, who was heading into his senior year of high school at the time. We dropped our daughter off her first year at Trevecca, moved her into the dorm, and flew from Nashville to Ukraine for our first mission assignment.
And then when did you get to Ukraine? What time period was that?
Yeah, so it was August of 2021.
Wow. Yeah. Right before the conflict started.
Yeah. Yes.
So how long were you in Ukraine? I mean, what was that like getting there?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, our first few months there were incredible. We really thought that our intention was to be there for a long time. We had signed on to be long-term career missionaries. Our son, of course, as I said, started his last year of high school there in Kyiv. And we started language classes. We went to visit all the churches on the Ukraine district. We were really getting involved, building relationships. At that time, it was really important. There hadn't been missionaries there for a while with the church. And so our goal really was to just build strong relationships, start discipling young leaders to take the reins and take ownership of the church, as we were needing some new pastors, some new leaders in on the district. And it was just a really beautiful time of seeing how God was moving on the district. And I wouldn't say our language got real good in that time, but we were trying. But really, it was all about the relationship. In those first few months.
We'll be right back with the rest of this episode. But did you know you can receive credit for listening to Holiness Today podcasts? Holiness Today podcasts qualify for lifelong learning with the Church of the Nazarene. To register for lifelong learning, simply go to learning.nazarene.org. The Lifelong Learning Registry provides Nazarene ministers the opportunity to record and report their efforts to develop and maintain a pattern of lifelong learning. Every Nazarene minister is encouraged to engage in a variety of lifelong learning activities. The code for Holiness Today podcast will be listed in the show description. This code can be utilized for this episode and any previous episode you wish to listen to. Thank you for being a listener and sharing in the ministry of the Church of the Nazarene. Now back to the rest of your episode.
And then as the conflict started, did you then pull out to Germany, or how did that? What happened in the transition phase there?
Yeah, so if you remember, leading up to the actual invasion, there were troops lining up on all the borders, and there was a lot of concern about what Putin was going to do and what was going to happen. And we would get calls, I feel like almost every day, from our family and friends in the United States who were hearing news and watching this happening, saying, why are you still there? And aren't you concerned? Our regional coordinator would call and just make sure we were okay. But really in Ukraine, all the way up until the invasion, everyone was kind of life is normal. There was no concern that it was actually going to start the way that it did. It felt like everyone we talked to felt like it was a power move of some kind. And so we really weren't too concerned about it. But then the U.S. Embassy left the country, and that kind of triggered a domino effect because we work for a U.S. company and we have U.S. insurance, and the church was concerned for our safety. We got a call saying, hey, we'd really like you, now that the embassy has left, to come to Germany, spend a few weeks, let this tension die down. We'll see what happens, and then we'll get you back. And so we packed a bag apiece, our son, myself, and my husband, and we went to Germany thinking just for a little vacation, a few weeks, and we would head back into Kyiv where our apartment is. And then just a few days, it turns out we were on one of the last flights out of Ukraine. And just a few days after we landed in Germany, Russia invaded Ukraine properly.
Wow. And you've been in Germany since, is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Since then.
We've never gotten the opportunity to go back to our apartment. So most of our things are still there for the last 3 years. We have at this point been able to go across the border just to Lviv, which is a small town just across from Poland. We've met some of our pastors there. We've done some training. Actually, we're doing an NCM training in just a few weeks here with them. So and obviously, once the war began, I was Nazarene Compassionate Ministries coordinator at the time. So we stayed very active and very busy, more so probably than if we had stayed there and everything was normal. So it was really a crazy time, but also a really unique time to see God do what he was going to do with the church, which, I think when the church is under pressure, when the devil or evil is trying to tear it apart, that's really when you see the church thrive and rise up to meet those challenges. And that's what happened. Ukraine is stronger than ever, and our churches are doing great. They're growing, and we're seeing revival happen there. So God is good.
That's amazing. So what was that transition like for your son? I imagine that was going into his senior year and then moving around, but if you can share, what was that like for him from his perspective?
Yeah, I think we all, dealt with it in our own way and kind of experienced it differently. There was a lot of loss, obviously, and a lot of survivor's guilt in some ways because we'd been pulled out because we were American. And then all of our friends were still in this horrible place going through some of the most difficult things they've ever experienced. So there's a lot of survivor guilt on our part, a lot of sadness. But our son was really great. I mean, the school that he went to was made up of mostly Americans, embassy kids, other missionaries from other organizations. And so very quickly it went back online. So he was able to finish his senior year. And actually a sister school in Budapest offered that they could whoever could make it, could come to Budapest and actually walk together and have a graduation ceremony. And they really welcomed us, and it allowed the kids to kind of meet for one last time and say goodbye because they hadn't had that. And it was really nice. So he actually, I think he would tell you that it was the best year of his life, even though it was full of, crazy transitions and things that were unexpected, and a lot of, sadness. It also had a lot of highs. And God really blessed us.
Yeah. So working as Nazarene Compassionate Ministries, obviously, we talk about Ukraine, but the other dynamic of that as well is there's churches in Russia as well. What was that like operating for both sides of that conflict? I'm sure that was very unique, interesting, crucible time, as you mentioned, pressure time.
Yeah. That's probably the biggest challenge still to this day, to be honest. The Eurasia North field is the field that we were missionaries on that covers really most of the former Soviet Union countries. And so, yeah, this was not just a one country challenge that we were facing. It really was our entire field that was involved in this some way. And we have great churches and wonderful Nazarenes all across that area. And they're all experiencing this on both sides and in different ways, and finding ways to help and to find forgiveness and unity again. That's going to take many years, I think, to be honest. It comes with a lot of forgiveness and restoration and, yeah, healing from the Holy Spirit. And I know it will come because that's the way that the church is and the way that it works. But yeah, I really would ask that we just continue to pray for that part of the world and the leaders that are guiding churches and people. I mean, I can't even imagine. I know what it's like a little tiny bit to go through this just on my own, but imagine you're going through this and trying to shepherd a whole church of people that are going through this at the same time that you are. I mean, it's just unbelievably challenging and difficult, and I can't even imagine. So yeah, if you could lift up those pastors and those leaders, they are in constant need of prayer.
And something Dr. Ritchie reminded me of when I interviewed him, I believe when he was Eurasia region. No, it was right when he was moving into Global Mission. Is that you also had Armenia and Azerbaijan right at the same time, or not same time, but not long after that, and then you had Israel and Palestine. So that's all in the Eurasia region, I believe, if that's how it. So you were probably involved in multiple conflicts, not just Ukraine and Russia at the same time, which is fascinating to think about. Yeah,
it is. It's a really difficult region. I mean, there's constantly things that are challenging. Yeah, in fact, so they brought us to Germany when the war began, and then we really were trying to get back to our field, and the one place that we could go was Armenia. So the Azerbaijan invaded Armenia about 2 days after we arrived in Armenia. We still were able to stay there for about 6 months because they were just on the borders, and it's actually a long-standing conflict. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's always a challenge, but man, when you get to know the churches and the people that are living through this every day and you see their faith, it is so challenging and confronting to your own faith and the way that you trust God with things that are difficult in your life. So, man, I just feel blessed to be on this region and to get to know the way that these people worship and the way that their faith sustains them through things that are really difficult.
Yeah. And then how soon after that, or how recently did you move over to work with Global Missions? Was that around the same time Dr. Ritchie moved into Global Missions, or what was the transition there?
Yeah. So when Jim Ritchie was elected as the Global Missions Director, of course, on our region, Eurasia, we were very sad to lose him. Of course, we knew he was a great leader and that he would be a wonderful Global Missions Director. And so we totally understood and were excited for that. But of course, personally, it felt like such a loss. And now we've got Mark Lowe, who's doing a great job and comes with so much experience. But yeah, right around the same time, I got a call from Jim, and he kind of just said, listen, we worked together great on communications when he was here as the regional director. And as he was moving into this new position, he really felt like he wanted a voice that he could share his own message to the church, what was happening in Global Missions on a real-time social media front. And he really asked that I would come and join him, partner with him, and try and communicate the story of what was happening in Global Missions around the world. So yeah, pretty quickly after he was put in that position, he asked me to join, and I felt like that was a good move for me. I prayed about it. I realized I've kind of been doing that my whole life, trying to tell the story of what God's doing. That's what gets me excited to share with the local church. So it felt like a good fit.
And the Global Missions Department just recently met in April. But what are some of the exciting new initiatives, perhaps, or maybe reinvigorating some of the older initiatives that came out of that? How did you feel about that meeting with your whole team?
It was awesome. I meet regularly every month with the regional communication coordinators. So we have 6 regions on the around the world for the Church of the Nazarene. And each region has a communications coordinator that kind of leads the efforts of all the videos, social media, the ways they communicate within each region. And then I kind of coordinate with them to make sure our global vision is the same. And so I've been meeting with them on Zoom. And of course, it's just not the same as in person. So to be able to meet with them for the first time in person, see their face and, just share that time together. It was so wonderful. I mean, I think we all just had a great time. And then, of course, the actual work of it is that, we started talking about what the future looks like, the coming years of global missions, how we as communications team are really going to help spread that message around the world, and really catching the fire of Jim's vision for what he's calling the cause, and how that's going to roll out in the coming months and years. It was a really great time to meet together and dream about what God will do.
Going to plug our podcast, but Dr. Ritchie is going to do some interviews for the Holiness Today podcast. He's also going to help with a column in the Holiness Today magazine. That's one way we've partnered on storytelling, but you're doing storytelling across the globe. What does that look like? Each region has its just whole context of different languages, but if you could share a little bit with our listeners, but how do you get the stories? How do you tell the stories? What does that look like on your end as a communication coordinator?
Yeah, I think it looks a little different on each region, of course, because they're made up of all kinds of different cultures and languages, like you said. But there's many podcasts similar to yours in many different regions. There's, I think, 3 or 4 in Mesoamerica, and I think there's 7 in South America. We're just starting a couple here in Eurasia. So the podcasts are becoming very popular. It's a great way to get the message out. Of course, lots of videos, things we post on social media. I think it's a really unique time right now where everyone that sits in a pew somewhere, anywhere in the world, can find out about what God is doing anywhere else in the world. And that's through social media. And so it's a really unique opportunity to one-on-one in a certain way, in a weird social media kind of way, tell the story to someone else that can sit in front of a computer or their cell phone and watch a video of what God's doing in Africa or in Panama or Peru or Spain. And it's really exciting to be a part of that. I mean, really, Jesus was a storyteller. That's, he told parables. He used all kinds of stories to share the message of God. And then, of course, the disciples, and in my mind, were kind of the first communications coordinators. They were challenged to share the message, to tell the story. And so I think we do that in different ways, obviously now by, video and podcasts and all these different things, but it's still the same message, and it's still the same idea of communicating God's love, God's mission, and how we can be a part of that. And it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be involved in that work, for sure.
And your husband is hosting a podcast for the Eurasia, with the Eurasia region, but focusing on Wesley's sermons. Eurasia's got a couple other podcasts as well. So there's plenty. We'll put those in the show notes, but plenty of podcasts for us to listen to. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, if you're interested in podcasts, you can find one. And I'm really excited about the ones that are in lots of other languages. I know you're kind of dipping into that as well. And
yeah,
I think
for sure.
That's an exciting way to make sure that, all of our brothers and sisters, not only are their voices heard, but that they can also share in hearing those stories in their own language. It's really important. So I appreciate what you guys are doing, for sure.
And it feels new, like, oh man, everyone's getting their information from podcasts, but it's kind of an older form too, radio, or storytelling.
Yeah. Right.
Global mission broadcast back in the day, way back when you could call in and listen to the Nazarene news read to you. So it's even really? Been with us for a while. Yeah. Merritt Nielsen told me that. I guess he used to read the news. I don't know when that would have been, 60s, 70s, but so in some ways we're pioneering, but we're going back to older forms of media, I think. So, but interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So something you said in there, and we've just brushed past it, but it piqued my interest a little bit. Musical theater. How did I could probably think of many answers, but how did God use your passion for musical theater to I could see it immediately as a confidence builder. I mean, that would be just sure. I love musical theater, but that's like stage fright, getting up there and having to sing. But how did God kind of move you from that passion? You were a worship leader to today. How did well, communicating. I mean, so you very early on you were communicating, but if you could share a little bit about that. Also, if you could pick one musical, what's your favorite? I don't know if you could pick a favorite.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's like picking a favorite child, but I'll think about that. Yeah, it's funny. I think in some ways it doesn't seem like it connects. It seems like this really obscure way around. But really, theater and opera musicals, it's all telling a story.
You're storytelling,
and it's storytelling, and so I just love that. I mean, even, every mission trip that I went on from middle school all the way through, when I was an adult in my local church, I was always the one that was writing the blog or taking the photos. And my excitement was when we got back to share it with the local church. So, musical theater, I think it's funny. It definitely gives you confidence. Jim Ritchie actually and I talk about this a lot because, as I'm sure, I think he shared it on your podcast, but he kind of came out of the rock music scene. And I have a little of that in my past as well. I was a lead singer in a Christian rock band for a while, and of course musical theater. But there is something about that helps. It helps the way that you communicate. It helps give you confidence to share with someone. It helps. I don't know. There's lots of ways that it connects, I guess.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think it's the storytelling part. It's the idea that there's something that I want to share with someone, and I want to do it in a way that they're going to connect to. Through musicals, it's people that come and they hear the songs and they go home and they listen to back in my day, CDs or the MP3s. They go on YouTube, whatever it is now. Every time they listen to that song, it takes them back to that moment. And in the same way, that's still what I'm doing. I'm just telling those stories, and I want people to connect, to find themselves in that story and feel something. I want God to stir something in their hearts and their souls so that it will get them up to give or to pray or to go. So yeah, it has a lot of connection, actually, I guess, when you really work it out. But
are you still doing? Do you still get the opportunity to do musical worship leading or anything like that in your role? Yeah. It would probably be hard to plug that in there, but
yeah, I don't get to do theater very often. I leave that to my daughter who's studying that now. But I do lead worship at my local church here in Germany. My husband is the pastor of our church here. It's an international church. It's a beautiful group of people from literally all over the world. And the commonality is we all speak English. And so we come together and worship in English, and I get to lead worship along with Chad preaching, and that's really great. But I don't really get to do that very often. I was just in New York City, actually, with my daughter a couple of weeks ago. She's getting married this summer. And so we were kind of taking this last mother-daughter trip before she's a married woman. And we saw lots of shows. And so, I think my favorite show, to go back to that, if you want me to answer.
Yes, absolutely.
I think I would go back to my first love. And this is going to sound maybe cliche because it just came out as a movie, and so it's gotten this new popularity. But I saw Wicked back in the day. I saw Idina and Kristen on
Did you really?
Broadway.
That's impressive.
Before it became the thing that it did.
Yeah.
And so it has always had a special place in my heart. I would say that would be my favorite if I had to pick one, probably.
Do you feel like the movie did a good job to the play? Did you feel satisfied with the connection? Yeah.
I did. I think everyone who loves the musical kind of felt that way. They took some liberties because you have to, but I think clearly the director, he was a lover of the musical as well, which helped. So it was great.
Well, and all the cameos were cool too, with Steven Schwartz and Idina and Kristen Chenoweth were able to be in there as well. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
So my wife's favorite, and I've grown to like it, but my wife's favorite that was, gilded in her brain when she was a kid was Cats the musical. But which is a very particular taste.
Yes,
and the movie did not deliver. She was so disappointed at the movie. It was just bad, very bad. Yeah. But no, she's an Andrew Lloyd Webber fan, so we've gotten into some. Yeah, Jesus Christ Superstar is on my mind during Holy Week, which is terrible.
Yeah,
might have to edit that out.
I have a great story. I have a great story about Jesus Christ Superstar, and it ties back actually. So. The former DS now of Ukraine district, when we first arrived in Ukraine, his name is Volodymyr Masuk, and he told me, I asked him once, how did you become a Christ follower? Because he grew up as a young boy in an atheist country in the Soviet Union, and he tells the story of a friend in college who gave him the CD of Jesus Christ Superstar. Actually, it was
Wow.
probably a tape, to be honest. It was many
Yeah.
years ago. But he played him the music of Jesus Christ Superstar. And the more he listened to it, the more he was thinking about this story. And
Yeah.
so then he started asking more questions about who is this person? And the guy who'd given him the tape was a Christ follower and told him about Jesus. And that's how he came to know the Lord, was through the musical Jesus Christ Superstar.
That is really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool story.
Yeah, we saw King of Kings recently. I don't know if you've seen that. It's more probably for children. It was good. I highly recommend seeing it. But my wife was saying, she goes, man, I just wanted some music. And I was like, yeah, I would love an adaptation, like an animated adaptation of Jesus Christ Superstar, maybe in the vein of Prince of Egypt. I don't know if we'll ever get that, but that would be neat.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I think they could redo the 70s one that they've done, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Of course, they've done that on Broadway multiple times, but that's
for sure
what we nerd out on.
Yeah, so I love it. That's great.
Another thing in your past, you started a non-for-profit in Michigan. Is that right? The Livingston County Severe Weather Network.
Yeah. So it started in our local church. So when we first started, it was in Howell, Michigan, and we got to this church, and it was a large building and had kind of had some difficulties over the years, sort of a church split and some other things. They had a school in the building. So it was this large building and not a large congregation at the time. And so we were really using about 10% of the building. And as we were praying about how to be responsible with that space that God had given us, as we were working to grow, the church and the congregation, we really felt like we were looking around. Michigan's cold. It gets really cold in December, January, February, and we did not have any shelters for homeless people in our community, in our county, actually. And when we went to ask about it, they said, well, we don't have homeless people. Well, that wasn't true. We knew that because being in a church, we had people come in all the time and ask for help. And, we would usually send them to the local, really cheap hotel nearby as best we could and try and help. But we really felt like, as we were praying about it, that God was saying, you have all these empty rooms, because it was a classroom. And because it was a school, there was several bathrooms and a couple kitchens. And, we had all this space that was just sitting there. And so we kind of thought, we asked our church, we feel like God is calling us to open up our building and allow people who need shelter during the night, during the cold winter months, to use our building for that. And I mean, our church was just behind it immediately. They jumped on board, and every night for 3 months, we had people that were scheduled to come in and stay up all night to help with these people. We had people that made meals for them every night. We had people that would make a lunch that as they were leaving the next morning, we could give them a lunch. We couldn't keep them in the building 24/7, but we allowed for an evening meal, and then overnight, and then in the morning. And it was just really a cool ministry as we watched our church, which was very small, but just started to do this thing. And then other churches in the community saw what we were doing, and they said, hey, we could take a night and do that, or we could bring over food that night. And so year after year, as it kind of grew and built, and by the end of it, we had all the churches in the surrounding county that were involved some way.
Wow.
We got a grant from United Way, and were able to buy a building and hire a full-time person. And so, we kind of, God gave us this little gift, this little seed, and then we kind of just threw it out there, and it's thriving and doing its thing. But it was a really cool blessing. And sometimes it's funny because people ask us about it, and I really think like that was kind of a cross-cultural experience in some ways, that started this journey in some ways to foreign mission. And, we were working with people that sometimes, I think in America anyway, I can't speak for everywhere, but I think when we see homeless people, we think, oh, they must be on drugs, or maybe they're, struggling with mental health or something. And it's not always that. And so to meet people who, had really experienced some just terrible situations and found themselves homeless. And some is mental health, and of course addiction is involved in some ways, but even those people were incredible people who just couldn't get, they needed some help to get on. And so one of the things that we did, I think the second or third year in, is we really started working more with people, if they were interested in that, to try and help get some further help so that somehow they could not come back. So we wouldn't see them the next year. And that was very successful as well. But yeah, it was really, I think it really developed a lot of things in Chad and I and in our church people of compassion and empathy and understanding for people that maybe we just looked down on or had thoughts about, before we actually met them and sat down to a meal with them and heard their story. So, yeah.
And did you see any people come through that non-for-profit that maybe started attending your church, or you saw their life change around too? And were you able to see the gospel also kind of given to them in that situation as well?
Yeah, absolutely. There was several stories like that. They didn't all end up in our church. Some ended up in other churches in the community, which is fine. That's great. But yeah, it's funny. We never really talked too much about God in the sense of we weren't using it as an evangelism tool. We really just wanted to give them a warm place to sleep on a cold night and give them food to fill their stomachs. But I think when you care about someone who everyone else, looks down on or brushes aside, they immediately start asking questions of why are you doing this? And so that would open the door to say, well, we believe God loves you and he's given us this building and we want to give it to you. So that always started a conversation that would end in at least them wanting to know more. And it didn't always end in, them finding Jesus and going to a church, but often it did. And that was a really cool part of what we were doing for sure.
Obviously that, as you mentioned, kind of built in your hearts, well, maybe encouraged you to do more compassionate ministries. We talked a little bit about your communication, musical theater prepping you for communication, but as you've been in this role, here's a tough question. What are maybe your first big challenges, or what's something you're wrestling through now and you're like, I've got to figure this out, or if you could boil it down, what is the biggest challenge of your role right now?
I mean, there's a few challenges, but I think honestly the biggest is language. I mean, when you look at, we are this beautiful global church and we have the privilege of being in 165 world areas. But what that means is there's a lot of language, a lot of culture, and it can be challenging to get this message to all those people. And so I think language is always a challenge because you'll have great material, great story, and how do you get it to someone so that they can hear it and so they can understand it? So we're working closely with, the language and communications departments in the Church of the Nazarene. We work closely with our regional communication coordinators to do translation and all kinds of things. It's a big effort. It takes a lot of people. It takes a lot of time. But I think that's the biggest challenge for sure. Trying to find ways to share the story. Yeah, to get it to people in a way that they can hear it.
Yeah. And I know that our language services department is always busy and more busy. It seems like it's just a growing, shouldn't say problem, but a growing need in our church as we expand outward. So that's a good point.
I think there has been maybe in the past some people or some areas of the world that felt like, or they thought even that this was the way it was, that, we're an American-centered church, that English is the language and that they're outsiders and that, we're just trying to, oh yeah, here, we'll throw you this because we can get this translated or something. And that's a really bad feeling for, I think, someone if they're in a local church in, Spain or in Germany here, if they can't get the same materials and the same ministry tools that everyone else in the world has that speaks English, that's really devastating, and so of course we don't want anyone in our churches, all who are equally important and equally valuable in mission and in ministry, to feel like they don't have the tools and the resources that they need to do what God has called them to do in their local church. So yeah, I think it's a big challenge. I for sure, I really appreciate Lucas Nunez and all of his team that are doing the language services. And yeah, I know they're overwhelmed. I mean, just this past week, we were in Barcelona with the global NDI meetings, and yeah, we had several interpreters with us, and it makes such a difference to be able to hear someone's voice and to know that they're being heard and understood, what they want to share, and that they're hearing all the same information as everyone else. So it's a really important job, and I don't know how they do it. God bless them.
No, it's
It's a
impressive.
big challenge. Yeah, it's impressive for sure.
Well, and also one thing we run to is that it's not so much a challenge of getting information to the world, but it's also a challenge of getting information from the world. Sometimes if we're just translating stuff from English into Spanish, it's like, because along with language is culture, maybe we need to be
Yeah.
getting stuff from Spanish into English. So it's just that all that, and you're dealing with that with so many dynamics. So that's a challenging and fun position that you find yourself in there.
Yeah, and I think that that's a part of why Jim thought this role was important as well, because yeah, it's I feel like I'm a little bit of that bridge between the regions and the global church, and I get to be the person that tries to gather those stories. I hear my regional communication coordinators tell those stories, and then I'm trying to get them connected back to like the Holiness Today podcast or back to the NMI leaders so they can share those stories. Because you're right, they have incredible stories of what God is doing in their own language, and we need to be able to tell those stories. And so, yeah, I feel very, very privileged to be in the position I am to help in that work in a small way. There's many other people that take what I do and really get the job done. But I feel blessed to be a part of that chain of of people that get the story out.
Well, it's a growing need. I mean, it's continue. I'm glad we're moving in that direction, but it's a growing. I'm happy you're in your position. When we first met, I thought, well, this will be great. Let's partner with you because I can't, because we're trying to do the same thing. But the more and more we can interconnect, if you're already doing some of that, that helps us out
Yeah.
so much. So thank you so much for being in that role.
Yeah.
That's the big blessing for us. So.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I am really excited. You mentioned it earlier, but yeah, Jim Ritchie, the Global Missions Director, is going to be coming on, I think, once a month or so, or regularly anyway, to kind of do some interviews and share those stories through your podcast. And it's a great opportunity to hear, anyone who's tuning in will hear the voices of leaders from around the world. They'll hear the stories of what God is doing and really hear the real impact of how they can be involved and what that looks like on the other side, which is so cool because I know as we talked about, I'm a legacy Nazarene family or whatever. And I remember sitting in tons of alabaster and faith promise services and giving my coins and thinking, I don't know where this is going. I mean, even if I saw a video, I kind of thought, oh, that's nice,
Yeah.
But I couldn't really connect with it that well. And I think, again, through social media, through podcasts, through interviews and stuff like that, you really get to see the impact of what we all are doing together through giving together and through just the world mission. It's just really exciting. And so I'm glad that Jim will come on and share.
Yeah, we're really
excited
for that. If you ever want to host too, Crystal, I'll just throw that invitation out for you. I'll put you on the spot, but you're welcome to take the microphone and host people as well.
Your job?
Yeah, no, we'll take it. Someone needs to replace me. And then
no, you're doing a great job.
Cheryl Crouch, I think, is going to get involved when she gets started in June for NMI. So hopefully we'll have more stories from around the world, but that'll be really good.
Yeah, Cheryl's great. We're really excited for all that's happening there. And yeah, it's going to be just, I think God is doing something. And I think we all kind of feel this move of just this resurgence of what God is doing to get the message out and to share, just so that I think so we can all be a part of what that it looks like. And again, whether it's to pray, serve, or go. And yeah, I'm happy that you are involved in that as well. So thanks to you and to all the people listening as well through your podcast. It's a fun time in the Church of the Nazarene.
It is. It's exciting. I'm hopeful that we'll continue to grow in that direction. So it's good. All right, I've got really, really important questions coming your way if you're ready for them. So,
hit me.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
If your life had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh, it has to be a real song, obviously, not just something I made up.
No, you can make something up. Go ahead. You can, channel your inner musical theater and give us something.
Yeah. Boy, I feel like I would really like to come up with something really spiritual and deep, I don't know. I really like John Bon Jovi. So All that's coming to my mind is "It's My Life" because that's what you're asking me about.
Yeah,
but I think that might be a terrible song, so don't look up the lyrics.
Is he also living on a prayer, or is that the same song? I'm trying to think.
Yeah. So that would have been better. I wish I thought of that one first. But yeah, I am always living on a prayer.
living on a prayer is an answer I give to people a lot of times.
Yeah,
so
that's
maybe
great.
I might also pick a Bon Jovi. Okay.
Yeah.
Next question for you. What three fictional characters best represent you?
3 fictional characters. Ooh, these are kind of tough.
I know.
I think, sometimes I feel like Winnie the Pooh. Sounds like
I love Winnie the Pooh.
Answer, but
no.
Like he's just such a
My
sweet...
wife would choose Winnie the Pooh as well. So.
Did she? Oh.
Yeah, she empathizes with Pooh a lot.
Yeah. He's just, he just wants everyone to be his friend and have a good time. And I kind of feel like that. I have positivity in my, top strengths. And so, yeah, I'm a very positive person and I like sweets. So I guess I'm a little like Pooh. And then, maybe Alexander Hamilton from the musical theme.
Yeah.
Just in the sense of like feeling like I'm pioneering something and I'm wanting to get the story out there, the whole thing of him writing all the time.
Yeah.
So maybe Alexander Hamilton.
In the room where it happens also,
Yeah. I like being in the room because then I can tell the story. Gosh, I don't know.
Those are both good.
Yeah, I don't know if I can come up with a third one.
I'll let you come back to if it comes to you. Here's another one. What character in the Bible do you most relate to? Or maybe another way to ask it, if you could meet with a character in the Bible outside of Jesus, which character would you pick? Sit down, have a cup of coffee or tea.
Yeah. So I always love the unnamed characters in the Bible. In fact, I did a sermon series about it because I like the idea that God doesn't take these extraordinary people. He just takes ordinary people and uses them in these extraordinary ways. So I like the unnamed characters. I don't know. There's also this story, and I've just lost her name. It's Gomer. Do you know the story of Gomer? I don't know that I sometimes relate to Gomer because it's, it's not that, not in some of the ways, but just in this idea of like, I think God is, I'm constantly, not as often as I'm getting older, but in my young days especially, I think I was constantly running from what God had for me and from the relationship that he wanted with me. And he would just constantly loving me,
always bring
me back in and always show up at my darkest moment and say, it's okay, clean me up and love me back. So yeah, maybe that's the best.
See, I'm getting my minor prophets, my H minor prophet. Is that Habakkuk or Hagar or Haggai? I can't remember who Gomer's husband is. I'll have to look that up, but that's bad. I'm trying to pull it.
Hosea?
Hosea.
Right?
See, I got it wrong completely. So,
yeah. I haven't read
how many H's are there?
Time, so.
I know.
Yeah,
no, I know the story you're referring to.
Yeah.
Didn't get either of them right.
Great.
So yeah, failure on my place. But no, that's good. Story. That's good. Okay. When you go back home to Michigan, is there a restaurant you're like, I've got to go here, or do you have a favorite place that's a favorite restaurant? So actually, give me two because I want a Michigan one and then I want one in Germany. So give me two, or in Europe.
Yeah, in Michigan, there's a bakery called M Street Bakery. And actually, my daughter and I worked at it for a little while just because I really enjoyed the food there. It's a little coffee shop and bakery, and they do these incredibly decadent and huge milkshakes. And they put like brownies and cookies on top.
Yeah,
that's always my guilty pleasure. Heading back to Michigan, here in Germany, boy, there's so many good places. There's actually a great Indian place nearby, but German food, there's a really awesome restaurant that has Wiener Schnitzel and currywurst. Currywurst is really a local thing. I don't know if you ever had that, but it's really sausage and then it's cooked in like this mustardy barbecue-y sauce. I don't know how to even explain it, but it's so good. And then it's usually on top of French fries. So that's a great indulgent
sounds good
food. Yeah. And it's kind of only here, I feel like, in this weird region. So,
yeah. Are you a coffee or tea drinker?
Coffee.
Do you have a specific way to do
I
it?
love tea, but coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah. Do you know, so I used to even be a barista like all the way back in college. So I kind of it got out of control. I was like a 5-shot kind of person every day, but I've tamed that back a little bit. But in Ukraine, there's this unique drink that I have fallen in love with, and I can't find it anywhere else, but it's called a raff. And it's where they use vanilla sugar, which is pretty common in this part of the world, rather than vanilla like extract. But they put vanilla sugar, and I like it with lavender. And then they steam the milk, espresso, and vanilla sugar all together. So it's like this really frothy. Oh, it's so good. It's such a good drink. That's my favorite coffee drink.
You could probably make that though, right? I mean, would you have the ingredients to do that? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you can. And I do sometimes, but it's not the same. Like it's something about when you go into a coffee shop and you smell the beans and it's like kind of bustling and you hear the noise of that coffee machine and the frother. I don't know. There's just something special about it. So it's not,
I get it. Because I'm trying to think.
Make it at home somehow.
If I've seen vanilla sugar, but they have vanilla sugar there, is what you're saying? You could go purchase that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard. That's one of the things as a missionary that's really hard to find. And for some reason, the thing that people send often, it's chocolate chips and vanilla extract. It's really hard to find that in the world. Yeah. Other than America. So yeah, but vanilla sugar is very common.
All right. Would you rather have a rewind button or a pause button for your life?
Oh man. Wow. There's benefits and terrible things with both of those options. Do you know, I don't really live looking back very often. I mean, obviously I look back and see what God has done and that kind of thing, but I don't really have regrets. In fact, my husband always teases that I'm the kind of person that shoots the arrow and then moves the target so that I could say I hit it. So I don't really live in regret very often or wish I could go back and rewind. So I guess pause. I think sometimes because I'm moving like that at that speed where I'm just like going without thinking and then, moving things around and saying, yeah, I got it. I think sometimes I should pause and rest. I know God is constantly trying to get me to slow down and not run ahead and stay in step with the Spirit. And and even living in moments where, it's just a beautiful sunrise or where I'm having a great time with family or something. Sometimes, I'm constantly already thinking about the next thing. And so, it'd be nice to pause and just enjoy that moment more, I think.
I think I'm tempted to say rewind, but I should say pause for all the reasons you just listed. Enjoying time. Rewind would seem to be more neurotic for me, playing into that.
Yeah.
All right. I'll give you a foodie one.
Okay.
Would you rather have breakfast for dinner or dinner for breakfast for the rest of your life?
Oh, that's easy. I love breakfast food, so I would always say breakfast for dinner.
Breakfast for dinner?
My favorite indulgence. Yeah,
that's
for
great.
Sure.
Yeah. We do that frequently, so we already are doing that over here.
It's a good habit. Yeah. My daughter, one birthday, she asked what she wanted for her birthday was to have dessert before every meal. So yeah, from the moment she woke up, she had dessert and then she had breakfast and she had dessert and then she had lunch and then dessert and dinner. Yeah. So yeah, she wouldn't like either of the answers. She'd just say dessert all the time.
Dessert all the time.
I'm breakfast. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a sweet tooth or did that pass down or? Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Although living here in Europe, I think it changes quite a bit because America, everything is very sugary and very, very sweet.
Oh yeah,
and then
for sure.
When you get over here, it kind of changes your taste palette a little bit, I think because now when I go back, it takes me some time. I wish I would just like try and be like, oh, this is too sweet. Let's not eat it. But instead it takes me a few days to get used to the sugar again. So yeah, a little bit of a sweet tooth, but it is going away quite a bit when I'm here in Europe.
Yeah. I've heard that. So that's interesting. My wife and I have been trying to eat a lot less sugar. And I've noticed my cravings have gone down. It's just weird how addicted we are to sugar.
I know. It really is an addiction.
And it's scary.
For sure.
Well, Crystal, thank you for this time. What can we be praying about in your ministry? What can we be praying for? And what are you excited for in the next few years to come in your position?
Yeah, I think prayer-wise, I mean, some of the things we've already talked about, just, our Eurasia region in particular, and the things challenges they face, but every region has something that they need prayer for. I think always praying for church and church leaders is important. Sometimes we forget that, I think. Yeah, personally, I think, my husband and I, both of our kids are in university in the United States, and so they're far away, and that can be a challenge for most missionaries. When their kids get to a college age, usually they're going somewhere else. But far away is, really far away.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just I think all of our missionaries who have kids far away, family far away, that's part of the challenge of the call. But what was the last part of the question? You said, what am I excited about? What God is doing?
What? Yeah, we could be praying for that as well. But what are you excited for in your role, or maybe a flash forward? What do you hope to see in the next few years in your position?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really excited about the cause that's coming. That's kind of a way, a sort of a battle cry for a new generation to get involved in missions. So I'm excited for all of that to come and how God is going to use that in the church. I'm excited, as we talked about, that local churches, hopefully around the world in their own language, can hear what's happening on the mission field through podcasts, through videos, through all these different ways, and that I get to be a small part of that. I'm excited about that, and really, I'm excited. I get the privilege really to see how the church is in lots of different cultures and lots of different countries and languages, and God is on the move. God's still actively calling people to ministry and to mission, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do in the coming years. He's not done with the Church of the Nazarene, that's for sure. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see what he will do.
Well, thank you, Crystal. It's been a pleasure to share this time with you, and we're excited for our global mission partnership to hear more from your department and more from the world. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, me too. And thanks so much for extending the invitation and allowing me to share a little bit about what's happening in communications. It's really great. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Holiness Today podcast. If you enjoyed this production and wish to hear more, visit holinesstoday.org/podcast or find us on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts.